Welcome to your deep dive. This time, we're all about becoming reading masters. You shared some pieces from 1% Yudu Shu, 1Re 15 Fenzong, Magu.pdf, and honestly, I'm feeling inspired to level up my reading game. Are you ready to unlock some serious reading power?
Absolutely. I think we're going to uncover some real gems today. This text is packed with insights, from unexpected benefits of reading to techniques for reading efficiently and remembering more.
Perfect. Let's dive right in. The text starts by highlighting some surprising benefits of reading, ones that go way beyond just, gaining information. It even talks about how reading can help conquer fear. Have you ever found yourself freezing up because you just didn't know enough about something?
Oh, yeah, it's a common experience. The unknown can be intimidating, right? But knowledge that empowers you to take action. Think about it. We often hesitate to do something new because we're afraid of the what-ifs. Reading equips us with the knowledge to face those what-ifs head-on.
It's like that saying, knowledge is power. And it's not just practical knowledge either. The text also talks about how reading, especially fiction, can develop imagination and empathy. There's even an anecdote about someone who gained a deeper understanding of grief after reading fictional accounts of loss.
What's fascinating is that reading allows us to step into the shoes of others, experience the world through their eyes, even if it's a fictional world. The emotions are real. Those experiences shape our understanding of ourselves and the people around us.
That resonates with me. I remember reading The Kite Runner years ago, and it gave me a whole new understanding of guilt and redemption. Have you ever felt like a book gave you a new perspective on a feeling or situation you'd never personally experienced?
Absolutely. For me, it was To Kill a Mockingbird. It opened my eyes to the complexities of racial prejudice in a way that, news articles or documentaries never could. Reading allows us to experience those issues on a human level, fostering a deeper sense of empathy.
It's like reading expands our emotional intelligence. And here's a benefit I hadn't really considered before. Reading as a form of single-tasking can be a powerful stress reliever.
This is incredibly relevant in our hyper-connected world where multitasking has become the norm. We're constantly bombarded with information, notifications, and it's taking a toll on our mental well-being. Reading offers a sanctuary, a way to disconnect from the digital chaos and focus on a single, engaging activity.
It's like hitting the reset button on our brains. Okay, let's move on to some practical tips. The text is full of efficiency hacks for reading. It all starts with setting a clear purpose before even opening a book. But I'm curious, isn't enjoying a book enough of a purpose?
Oh, of course enjoyment is essential, but having a more specific purpose, I think, can make your reading experience even more rewarding. Think of it this way. If you're reading for pure pleasure, you might meander through a book, letting the story, the ideas, wash over you, which is great. But if you're reading to learn a new skill or to gain insight into a specific topic, having a clear purpose helps you filter information and focus on what's truly relevant to your goals.
So it's like having a mental sieve that separates the must-know from the nice-to-know.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be complicated either. Your purpose could be as simple as, I want to learn how to be a better communicator, or I want to understand the history of the French Revolution. Having that clarity from the start makes a huge difference.
That makes a lot of sense. And here's a tip that surprised me. Read the preface, the postscript, and the table of contents before diving into the main text. That seems a bit backward, doesn't it?
It might seem counterintuitive, but it's all about creating a mental roadmap of the book. Think of it like exploring a new city. You wouldn't just wander around aimlessly, would you? You'd probably look at a map first to get a sense of the layout and the key landmarks.
I see what you mean. So reading the preface, postscript, and table of contents is like getting a bird's eye view of the book before exploring its streets.
Precisely. The preface gives you an overview of the author's intent, the main arguments. The postscript often summarizes the key takeaways or offers, a concluding thought. And the table of contents outlines the structure of the book. By reading these sections first, you're essentially priming your brain to understand the author's arguments and how the book is structured.
That's a game changer. I'm definitely going to try that with my next book. And speaking of filtering information, the text also talks about applying the 80-20 principle to reading. I'm curious, how does that principle apply to something like a novel?
That's a great question. The 80-20 principle, in its essence, suggests that 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. Now, in the context of reading, it means that a book is typically composed of 20% core arguments and 80% supplementary content. This supplementary content includes things like examples, anecdotes, and supporting evidence.
So the idea is to focus on that core 20% and skim or skip the rest.
Not exactly. While understanding those core arguments is crucial, the supplementary content provides valuable context and depth. Think of it like building a house. You need the foundation to support the structure, even if it's not the most visible part.
So it's not about ignoring the 80%, but rather understanding its role in supporting the main ideas.
Exactly. Applying the 80-20 principle to your reading can help prevent you from feeling lost or overwhelmed. By focusing on the core arguments first, you have a clearer understanding of the overall message, which makes navigating the rest of the book less daunting.
It's like having a compass to guide you through a dense forest. The text also mentions some surprisingly simple but effective tips, like using your finger to guide your eyes while reading. I have to admit, I used to think that was a bit childish.
I know, right? But honestly, it's a game changer. It's like having a personal reading coach keeping you on track.
So how does using your finger actually improve the reading experience?
Well, it eliminates 3 major reading pitfalls: unnecessary rereading, losing your place, and getting distracted. Keeping your finger on the text anchors your attention and creates a physical connection to the words, making it much easier to follow along. We've all had those moments where we realize we've been reading but not actually absorbing anything, our minds wander, and we end up having to reread entire paragraphs. Using your finger acts as a gentle reminder to stay present and engaged with the text. Plus, it prevents those embarrassing moments when you realize you've been reading for 5 minutes but haven't absorbed a single word.
It's like giving your eyes a physical guide through the text. Okay, the next section is all about shifting your reading mindset from passive to active and goal-oriented. It's called the reader's perspective, and it seems to be all about reading with intention.
It raises an important question. What are you hoping to gain from reading? The reader's perspective encourages you to prioritize knowledge that's useful, applicable to your life, even if it means being selective about what you read. It challenges the idea that you need to read every single word just to finish a book.
So you're saying it's okay to skip parts of a book. That feels almost sacrilegious.
It's not about disrespecting the author or the work at all. It's about recognizing that your time is valuable and that you don't have to read everything to gain valuable insights. It's about extracting the most relevant information for your personal or professional goals.
The text gives a really interesting example of this. It talks about a research study on parents making difficult medical decisions for their premature baby.
The point is that even seemingly unrelated studies or stories can offer valuable insights into our own challenges.
So someone struggling with a business decision could find inspiration in a biography of a historical figure who faced similar obstacles.
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots and applying knowledge in unexpected ways. It's about recognizing that valuable knowledge can come from a variety of sources, not just those directly related to our immediate problems.
I'm starting to see how this reader's perspective is perfect for our fast-paced, information-saturated world. It's about reading smarter, not just harder.
Precisely. It's about being intentional with your reading choices and making sure they align with your objectives. Reading should be a tool that empowers you, not overwhelms you.
So we've talked about the surprising benefits of reading, some strategies for getting the most out of our reading time. But what about speed reading? Is it really possible to read faster without sacrificing comprehension?
Well, that's where things get interesting. The text acknowledges the skepticism surrounding speed reading and even shares that funny anecdote about the politician who claimed to have speed-read War and Peace and concluded it was about Russia.
The classic speed reading blunder. It makes you wonder what he was actually hoping to get out of the experience.
Right. But the text makes it clear that true speed reading isn't just about skimming through text. It's about increasing your reading comprehension, information processing speed, not just the speed at which your eyes move across the page.
So it's not just about reading faster, it's about understanding more in less time.
Precisely. Now, while we're on the topic of speed and efficiency, the text also mentions a technique called wakeful rest. Have you ever heard of this?
Wakeful rest. That's a new one for me. What's that all about?
It's essentially about taking short breaks, during reading to boost memory retention, pausing for a few minutes every now and then to let the information sink in.
So instead of powering through a book without pausing, we should embrace these mini breaks as opportunities to enhance our understanding and recall.
Exactly. Think of it like taking a mental stretch after a period of intense focus. Those short breaks allow your brain to process and consolidate what it's just learned.
I can definitely see the value in that. Sometimes I get so caught up in the flow of reading that I don't even pause to reflect on what I've just read. I'm definitely going to try incorporating these wakeful rest breaks into my reading routine. What else does the text have to say about speed reading?
It dives into the mechanics of speed reading, explores eye movement patterns, acknowledges the limits of reading speed. It also introduces a specific speed reading technique that focuses on skimming for key information and then using, wakeful rest to consolidate what you've learned.
It sounds like a combination of efficient information gathering and strategic memory techniques.
Exactly. It's a comprehensive approach that addresses both speed and comprehension. The text emphasizes that speed reading isn't a magic bullet, but with practice and the right techniques, you can significantly improve your reading speed without sacrificing understanding.
Okay, the next part of the text is titled, Reading Efficiency Maximized with 7 Secrets. It sounds like a treasure trove of practical advice. Are you ready to unlock some secrets?
Absolutely. I love a good secret, especially when it comes to reading. Let's dive in.
All right, secret number 1 focuses on setting a purpose, which we've already discussed. But the text takes it a step further, suggesting that we actually read with pre-existing biases. That sounds a bit controversial, doesn't it?
It might sound strange at first, but hear me out. Having some background knowledge about the author or the topic can actually enhance your understanding and enjoyment of a book. It's like having a mental framework to hang new information on. Imagine you're assembling a puzzle. If you have the picture on the box as a reference, it's much easier to put the pieces together, right?
So having some pre-existing knowledge about the author or the subject matter acts like that picture on the puzzle box, helping us make sense of the information.
Exactly. The text uses a great example to illustrate this point. It's about a tweet that, on the surface, seems like a simple anecdote about a son visiting his mother's grave on the anniversary of her death. But if you have some context about the author's life, the tweet takes on a whole new meaning.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this tweet.
So, the tweet itself is fairly straightforward. The author simply mentions visiting his mother's grave and feeling a sense of peace. But if you know that this author struggled for years to achieve his dream of becoming a writer, and that his mother was his biggest supporter during those difficult times, the tweet becomes incredibly poignant.
It becomes a story about perseverance, about pursuing your dreams, even when faced with adversity. And the author's visit to his mother's grave takes on a deeper significance, a tribute to the person who believed in him when he doubted himself.
Precisely. Knowing that backstory adds an emotional layer to the tweet, enriching the reader's understanding and appreciation.
It's like having a behind-the-scenes look at the story. And the text argues that setting a purpose before reading can create a similar effect, helping you focus on specific information and connect with the material on a deeper level.
Exactly. It's about making the reading experience more active, engaging. Instead of passively absorbing words, you're actively searching for answers, insights that are relevant to your goals.
I love how the text emphasizes that active engagement with the text. Okay, secret number 2 focuses on reading in a specific order. And it's not the order you might expect.
This is where it gets really interesting. The text recommends reading the preface, the afterword, and the table of contents before diving into the main text.
I've never heard that before. Why this unconventional order?
Well, it's all about creating a mental map of the book. The preface gives you an overview of the author's intent and main arguments. The afterword often summarizes the key takeaways or offers a concluding thought. And the table of contents, of course, outlines the structure of the book.
So you're basically getting a sneak peek of the book's essence before diving into the details.
Exactly. It's like exploring a new city. You wouldn't just wander around aimlessly, would you? You'd probably look at a map first to get a sense of the layout, the key landmarks.
I see what you mean. So reading the preface, postscript, and table of contents is like getting a bird's eye view of the book before exploring its streets.
Precisely. By reading these sections first, you're essentially priming your brain to understand the author's arguments and how the book is structured. It's like having a roadmap to guide you through the text.
I'm definitely going to try this with my next book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, secret number 3 is about applying the 80-20 principle to reading, which we've discussed in a previous deep dive. But how does it specifically apply to reading?
The text emphasizes that a book is typically composed of 20% core arguments and 80% supplementary content, which includes examples, anecdotes, supporting evidence. The idea is to focus on understanding the core 20%, the author's main arguments, key takeaways, and use the remaining 80% for context and examples. It's about prioritizing the most impactful information.
So it's not about skimming or skipping the 80%, but rather understanding how that supporting material contributes to the main arguments.
Exactly. Think of it like this. The core 20% is the heart of the message, while the remaining 80% is the body that gives it shape and substance. You need both to fully grasp the author's message.
The text also makes a great point about how applying the 80-20 principle can help prevent you from feeling lost or overwhelmed while reading. By focusing on the core arguments first, you have a clearer understanding of the overall message, which makes navigating the rest of the book less daunting.
It's like having a compass to guide you through a dense forest. You know where you're headed and can navigate the twists and turns without getting lost.
Okay, secret number 4 is one we've touched on before. Using your finger to guide your eyes while reading.
Ah, yes, the power of the humble finger. It might seem like a simple trick, but it can make a world of difference in your reading experience.
We talked about it earlier as a focusing technique, but I'm guessing there's more to it.
Absolutely. The text dives deeper into how using your finger eliminates 3 major reading pitfalls: unnecessary rereading, losing your place, and getting distracted.
Okay, I can see how it addresses all 3. Keeping your finger on the text anchors your attention, creates a physical connection to the words, making it much easier to follow along.
And let's be honest, we've all had those moments where we realize we've been reading, but not actually absorbing anything. Our minds wander, and we end up having to reread entire paragraphs, sometimes even entire pages. Using your finger acts as a gentle nudge, reminding you to stay present and engaged with the text.
I have to admit, I used to think using my finger was a bit childish, like something you do when you're first learning to read. But now I see it as a power move. It's about taking control of the reading experience and maximizing your comprehension.
It's about owning your reading experience and making every word count. The text also suggests holding the book at eye level, which can help prevent fatigue and maintain focus.
That makes sense. Hunching over a book for hours can't be good for your posture or your concentration. Okay, secret number 5 is all about memory techniques. Now, this is where I need all the help I can get.
Don't worry, you're not alone. A lot of people struggle with remembering what they've read, but the text offers some simple yet effective strategies for improving memory retention without adding extra work to your reading routine.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
The first technique is called wakeful rest, which we've already discussed in relation to speed reading, but it's equally valuable for improving memory retention.
So taking those short breaks can help us remember what we've read.
Exactly. It's about giving your brain a chance to process and consolidate the information. It's like letting a delicious meal settle before moving on to dessert.
That's a great analogy. I can definitely see how that would work. Sometimes I try to cram in as much reading as possible, but then I can't remember half of what I've read.
The text emphasizes that even short breaks, as brief as 4 to 10 minutes per hour, can significantly improve memory retention. It's about working smarter, not harder.
I love that philosophy.
Okay.
What's the second memory technique?
It's all about rephrasing, which involves summarizing key concepts in your own words.
This is something I try to do naturally, but I'm guessing there's a specific way to approach it to maximize its effectiveness.
The text recommends condensing information into concise summaries, like bullet points or short paragraphs, using language that you're comfortable with.
So it's not just about highlighting passages or copying down quotes. It's about actively engaging with the material and translating it into your own mental language.
Exactly. It's about making the information your own. And the final technique is simply recall, which involves actively trying to remember what you've read after you've finished a section or chapter.
This sounds like a good way to test your comprehension and identify areas where you might need to revisit the text.
It's a powerful way to reinforce learning and identify any knowledge gaps. It also encourages you to think critically about the material and make connections to your existing knowledge.
Okay, I'm already feeling more confident about my ability to remember what I read. These techniques are simple but effective, which is exactly what I need.
Simplicity is key, especially when it comes to building sustainable habits.
So true. Okay, secrets number 6 and 7 are all about boosting focus and reading speed. Let's start with secret number 6, which is titled Magic to Improve Concentration and Motivation. Sounds intriguing.
This section delves into the importance of creating an environment that supports focus and concentration. It emphasizes the importance of starting strong.
Starting strong. What does that mean exactly?
It's about dedicating the first few minutes of your reading session to fully immersing yourself in the text. The text recommends slowing down your reading pace for the first 5 words, savoring each one to engage your attention.
It's like easing yourself into a cold pool instead of jumping right in. I can see how that gradual approach would make the experience more enjoyable, less jarring.
It's about setting the stage for a focused, productive reading session. The text also recommends a kind of a unique exercise, closing your eyes and trying to identify 3 distinct sounds in your environment.
Sounds a bit like a mindfulness exercise. How does this tie into reading?
It's about training your attention, cultivating awareness of the present moment. By quieting the mental chatter and focusing on sensory input, you create a state of mental clarity that's conducive to deep reading.
I'm intrigued. I'm always looking for new ways to improve my focus, so I'm definitely going to try this. Okay, secret number 7 is all about speed reading, a topic that's both fascinating and a little intimidating.
Speed reading is often shrouded in mystery and misconception, but the text breaks it down in a clear and accessible way, demystifying the process and offering practical techniques for improving your reading speed without sacrificing comprehension.
So it's not just about reading faster, it's about understanding more in less time.
Precisely. The text dives into the mechanics of speed reading, exploring eye movement patterns, and the limits of reading speed. It also introduces a specific speed reading technique that focuses on skimming for key information and then using wakeful rest to consolidate what you've learned.
It sounds like a combination of efficient information gathering and strategic memory techniques.
Exactly. It's a comprehensive approach that addresses both speed and comprehension.
This has been a fascinating exploration of reading efficiency hacks. I'm already feeling inspired to level up my reading game.
It's all about finding the techniques that work best for you and incorporating them into your reading routine. Experiment, have fun, and see what helps you get the most out of your reading experience.
Okay, in the next section, we're going to dive into a specific reading technique that the author calls the 1% reading method. It promises to help you achieve significant results by dedicating just 1% of your day to reading.
I'm intrigued. Let's see what this 1% method is all about.
This 1% reading method sounds almost too good to be true. The author of this text, 1% Yudu Shu Runri, 15 Fenzong, Magu.pdf, claims to have read over 4,000 books in 10 years using this method. Is that even possible?
It's certainly an impressive feat, but the beauty of the 1% reading method is that it focuses on consistency and quality over quantity. It boils down to dedicating just 15 minutes each day to focused reading. The author argues that even small, consistent efforts can yield significant results over time.
So instead of trying to cram in hours of reading on the weekends, or feeling guilty for not finishing a book in one sitting, it's about making reading a daily ritual, even if it's just for a short burst of time. It's like the saying, slow and steady wins the race.
Exactly. It's about integrating reading into your daily routine, much like you would, exercise or meditation. The key is to approach those 15 minutes with intention and focus, making every minute count.
The text outlines 6 specific steps for implementing the 1% reading method. The first step is defining your purpose for reading, which aligns with what we discussed earlier about setting a clear objective before you even open a book.
Absolutely. Having a purpose focuses your attention and helps you extract the most relevant information from the text. It's like having a mental filter that separates the signal from the noise.
The second step is to preview the table of contents to get a sense of the book's structure and identify chapters that are most aligned with your purpose.
It's about being strategic with your time and energy, focusing on the parts of the book that will yield the most value for your specific goals.
So you're not diving into deep reading right away. You're taking a more strategic approach, getting a lay of the land before you start digging for treasure.
Exactly. It's about maximizing efficiency, ensuring that you're getting the most out of your 15 minutes. The next step is to skim those chapters you've chosen to get a sense of the key takeaways.
Then the fourth step is where you actually dive into deep reading, carefully absorbing the information and making sure you understand the author's arguments and supporting evidence.
This is where you engage with the material on a deeper level, making connections, drawing your own conclusions. It's like having a conversation with the author, challenging their ideas, integrating their insights into your own understanding.
And step 5 is all about rephrasing, summarizing the key concepts in your own words to solidify your understanding.
It's about taking ownership of the information, making it your own, rather than just memorizing someone else's words. It's like translating a foreign language into your native tongue.
And finally, the 6th step is recall. Taking a few minutes to reflect on what you've read and try to remember the key points.
It's a form of active retrieval that strengthens memory and helps identify any areas where you might need to go back and review the material. It's like testing yourself after studying for an exam.
This 1% reading method seems like a really practical and sustainable way to make reading a consistent habit. It takes the pressure off having to read for hours at a time and instead focuses on short, focused bursts of reading.
It's about making reading a manageable and enjoyable part of your daily life rather than a chore, an obligation. It's about fitting reading into the nooks and crannies of your day, whether it's during your commute, your lunch break, or just before bed.
The text also introduces some additional reading techniques that can enhance your learning and comprehension. One technique is called One Shelf, One Book, and it's about reading a selection of books on a single topic or theme to gain a broader understanding of the subject.
It's a fantastic way to delve deeper into a subject that fascinates you. It's like creating your own, personalized curriculum. Imagine you're interested in the history of space exploration. Instead of just reading one book on the Apollo missions, you could explore books on the early pioneers of rocketry, the race to the moon, the challenges of space travel, and the future of space exploration.
It's like taking a deep dive into a subject, exploring its depths and nuances from multiple angles.
Exactly. By reading multiple perspectives and exploring different facets of a subject, you gain a much richer understanding than you would by just reading a single book. You start to see the connections between ideas, the historical context, the human stories that shape our understanding of the world.
The text also mentions speed listening, visual confirmation reading. Sounds a bit complicated. What is this technique all about?
It essentially involves listening to an audiobook at an accelerated speed while simultaneously scanning the text with your eyes. It might sound like a recipe for a headache, but with practice, it can be a powerful way to absorb information quickly.
So it's like a turbocharged way of reading, combining the benefits of auditory and visual learning to increase your information processing speed.
Exactly. It's a technique that requires focus and practice, but it can be a game changer for those who want to accelerate their learning.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the world of reading. We've explored the unexpected benefits, practical strategies for reading efficiently, and even some techniques for boosting memory retention and reading speed. What are some key takeaways for our listener as we wrap up this deep dive?
I think the most important takeaway is that reading is a gift, a journey of lifelong learning and discovery. It's about expanding your knowledge, developing your skills, shaping your perspective on the world. It's about finding joy and fulfillment in the act of reading itself.
I couldn't agree more. It's about discovering new worlds, exploring different ideas, connecting with the minds of great thinkers, storytellers.
And the beautiful thing is, it's a gift that keeps on giving. The more you read, the more you learn, the more you grow. It's a virtuous cycle that enriches every aspect of your life.
To our listener, I encourage you to embrace the power of reading. Make it a part of your daily routine, even if it's just for 15 minutes a day. Explore different genres, challenge your assumptions, and let reading transform your life. Happy reading!